Magical Mystery School, and thank you so much for coming back to Astrology Lesson 26. Now, for those of you who've been with me for a while, you know this was a 20, I totally just spaced number 26. So here we go. I'm going to do a midterm review and reminder of things. All about the art of interpreting transits. So I just kind of wanted to, I'm going to use this class to just kind of bring a few things together here. So, and remind you of a few things. So first off, remember when we're looking at an astrology chart, you've got your subconscious working right along with your conscious mind, and you may not be aware of it, of course, but it is reading those symbols, it's understanding the geometry, it knows it may have been an astrologer in a past life or whatever. So you do have that subconscious knowing that for some of you, you're just going to be remembering, basically. And the second thing I wanted to mention was free will. Now here we are, we're talking about all these transits coming and these things happening and blah, blah, blah. Well, just remember, you do have free will. And that free will is, you may not be able to control the energies coming in at you, but you are able to control how you respond to those energies. So, you know, it's pretty hard, like if someone's just broken your heart and you're like sitting on the couch crying and feeling lonely and stuff like that. Some things just take time to, you know, to get through, basically. But let's take something simple like, say you're at work and one of the guys at work makes some flippant, obnoxious comment about your hair, and it hurts your feelings. Well, you can, just turn right back at him and say, well, at least I've got some hair if he's balding or something. Or you could lay in wait and say, I'm going to get him next chance I get, and do the little revenge stuff. You could be so insulted and humiliated that you just kind of laugh it off and go home and feel really bad about it. What else could you do? You could go look in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, I think he may have been onto something. Maybe my hair doesn't look so great. So, you know, you have, you know, or somebody may say something to you and it doesn't even bother you. It just rolls off your back. So just remember that you have different ways that you can deal with these transits in different ways. Now that's a real simple, but I think it gets the point across. Now, when you're looking at the transits of your chart, like myself, I pretty much definitely once, twice a year, I sit down and I call it doing my astrology, and I sit down and I really pay attention to you know, where all the planets are, what houses are they moving through, and all that kind of good stuff. So I do that, you know, like I said, a couple of times a year for sure. The other thing I always do is get a reading from an astrologer about every 12 or 18 months, because I just miss stuff in my own chart. And that's why I don't really do friends or family members. Well, first off, I don't want to be a snoop. And I do look at their charts, of course, especially if they ask. But then, you know, sometimes I just don't, you know, I have so many things I want for them that I don't feel like I can give them a real full, complete reading. So really, it's actually easier to do people I don't even know, actually. So, interestingly enough. Another thing you want to look at is, where are you in your life? Are you, remember and a real good timer for that, Saturn, you know, the cosmic cop, the clock too, out there. If you're 28, 30 years old or younger, in astrology, we still kind of consider you a kid. So you're still learning a lot, for sure. And then the next Saturn return comes when you're about 56, 58, somewhere in there. So you can imagine between, you know, 28 and 58, you've probably got your career going pretty good or not. Maybe you've had your kids and your kids are getting ready to leave home. So maybe you're getting ready to start your career in a new way. So that's a good transition point too. And also you're starting to think about, well, what am I going to do when I'm not working, when I retire? And the third Saturn return comes when you're around 84. So that's a whole nother chapter, new chapter of life. And do you think we're going to make it to 112 for our fourth Saturn returns? I don't know. It kind of seems like a might be a stretch even for these days. So I think for the other things I want to talk to you about, I think it'd be easier if I pull down the camera and we look at the wheel together. So I'm going to put you on pause for a minute. Okay, so here's our wheel, and I just put the horizon line in here. Remember our rising sign here, our generic chart just starts with Aries over here on the first house cusp. So when I'm doing that yearly look at my chart, what I do is I look at the slowest planets first. So I'm looking at where's Pluto. And right now, as we speak, Pluto is kind of going back and forth between the Capricorn and Aquarius house cusp here. It's right this minute in Capricorn, but it was in Aquarius a little bit. So since it doesn't move very fast, I don't have to do a whole lot of work. It's pretty easy because it's not going to make a whole ton of aspects like, the sun goes around and makes an aspect to everything once a year. Okay, so you do want to look at, where's Neptune, where's Uranus, and where is it going retrograde? Is it transiting any of your own personal planets? Now, hopefully you remember this guy. You remember this? Feel free to take a screenshot if you like. This was just our list of here's all the signs and the houses they rule. Oops. The element. So this is fire, earth, air, water. Fire, earth, air, water, right? And then the modalities are the qualities, cardinal, fixed, mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable. And then this row is just the planet that rules each sign. So Mars rules Aries, etc. So anyway, hopefully you're able to see that and get that. Now, why is that so important? Well, and also notice with these elements how the symbol is a triangle. Well, when we look at using the elements, I'm going to take that off for right now. Let's say you have a planet, your own personal planet is up here in Capricorn, okay? So if you've got a planet in Capricorn, which is an earth sign, a cardinal earth sign, we can see with the trine, the easiest of the aspects, it's doing that to the two other earth signs. And that's going to always be true. If you've got a planet in Sag, that's a fire sign. So if any transiting planet, when the sun or Pluto or whichever goes through these fire signs, it's going to be in an easier aspect to the planet that you have in that fire sign. And then also the two air signs on either side, because remember, fire and air work together pretty good. Those create sextiles, which is a nice energy also. Now, that's the elements. So any sign that's, here's a water sign, it's going to be, it's going to hook right up with Pisces, Scorpio, and Cancer, right? So those are all going to blend, and transits are going to work a little bit more smoothly with those guys. Now, for the modalities, cardinal, fixed, mutable, let's go back here. Capricorn is a cardinal sign. So the other signs that are cardinal, so Libra, Aries, and Cancer, are all going to have that square transit to whatever planet you have in Capricorn. So if something is transiting through Aries or Libra, or it'll be squaring it and creating more difficulty, and then Cancer will be opposing it. Maybe not as tough as a square, but still not the most pleasant of transits, actually. So, and just remember, so that's going to be true. Here we go to Aquarius, which is in a fixed air. Well, here we've got Scorpio fixed water, Taurus fixed earth, and Leo fixed fire. So those are going to be a little bit more challenging, maybe too much energy, get you off your behind and get moving there. So that's why I wanted to stress again these elements and modalities. So feel free to take a screenshot of that. The other thing I wanted to mention again too was orbs. Okay, so we've talked about, you know, when you have a natal planet sitting there in a sign, you're always safe that when a transiting planet gets within 10 degrees of that planet, and it can be 10 degrees of an aspect, all right, when it gets that transit starts to come into action, and then 10 degrees past it, we usually give it. Now, some astrologers, they're going to go 5 degrees, 6 degrees for those orbs. That's fine. Personally, I think as that planet approaches, applying pressure to a natal planet, I feel that quite a bit. And then once the conjunction or the square, whatever it is, takes place, that's the most intense. And yeah, I still feel it. I still feel that square, but it seems to subside for me a little bit quicker than the anticipation of coming up. Now, another thing I wanted to just alert you to is if you've got any planet that's, say, between 25 degrees and 5 degrees between a sign, anywhere along in there, it's really easy to have what's called an out of sign aspect. And this is so let's say you've got a planet that's like at 3 degrees Aquarius. Well, even though you may be thinking, oh, okay, the square to Aquarius would be Taurus or Scorpio. Well, if you're only 3 degrees, you're going to start feeling that when that planet is still in Capricorn. So just be aware of that. If you've got any planets, I'd say between 25 and 5 degrees of the next sign, to be alert for those out of sign aspects. Now, I think the only other, of course, you know, remember to be aware of what planets are aspecting what planets. Venus and Jupiter are benefics. Saturn and Mars and Pluto are malefic, so they're a little tougher to deal with. Neptune, it can be pretty tricky too. Oh, and one other thing I want to mention to you. Let's say you've got a grouping of planets, all right, that are like, oh, anywhere 2, 3, 5 degrees apart, but they make a stellium. So when that happens, that planet, say, is going to come up and square those. Well, it's not just going to square this planet and be done, this planet and be done, this planet and be done. Be prepared. This is going to be a long transit because it's going to go all the way through all 3 of those planets before that transit is off, even that first one. Okay, I think that pretty well, and I already mentioned to you about make sure you know what planets are, where's the retrogrades happening. Remember, it hits a planet once, station retrograde twice, station retrograde direct, and 3 times. And with Neptune and Pluto, you can get 4 and 5. So watch out for that. And remember, if you get just a conjunction of, like with Saturn or Jupiter or any of those outer planets, if you only get one hit, just remember that transiting planet may come back and just, I mean, like get within like a degree or minutes of that natal planet, but never actually really hit it, so it doesn't show up like on the computer or whatever, and then off it goes. But be aware that those retrogrades can be really super important. Okay, so I think I've covered everything, and or you know, for what we're doing here. So just remember, guys, from here to there, from there to here, funny things are everywhere. Bye. See you next time.